So, I want to talk about the 8 habits of successful high-end culinary brands. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because I have noticed over the years from coaching my clients and working on other high-end culinary brands, working for high-end culinary brands, building my own high-end culinary brand, that there are some similarities across all of those examples. Now, I will say this, I'm going to be getting into the 8 business habits of high-end culinary brands in this particular video. However, there are 8 other more personal individual habits that I have noticed over time, and I'm going to be sharing those with my private community on our private podcast. I feel like this would be more valuable to you, in video form, so that you can really get an in-depth understanding of these 8 habits and see where you stack up, where you align, where maybe there is, a gap for you and your business. And I got the inspiration from this because, you think about all of these articles and listicles that talk about like the 8 habits of millionaires or the habits of people who are healthy eaters or people who live the longest or have the happiest marriages. And it's not so much that it's one size fits all. It's definitely more so like, here are some common threads that we see through these specific groups that attribute to their success in that area. And so that is the point of this video. So I'm going to go through the eight business habits. And like I said, if you want to dive into the 8 more personal growth and development individual habits, then you can check that out in our newsletter and in our private podcast. Okay. So here's why I think this subject matter is so important. It's because successful people are simply people with successful habits, right? Successful people are simply those with successful habits. And so the same is true in business. Successful businesses aren't successful because they're lucky or they're special or unique. They are special because they have habits, systems, if you will, that allow them to be successful. Okay. So if this is your first time watching a video with me, I'm Chef Evelyn. I'm the CEO and founder of Gourmet Grad School. And Gourmet Grad School is a culinary entrepreneurship education company. And so our role is that we pick up and begin where culinary school ends, right? Because culinary school doesn't teach you entrepreneurship. It wasn't designed to. Culinary school was designed to make you a better cook. Maybe you're someone who didn't go to culinary school. Maybe you're someone who did. But if you're ready to really get into the business, the skill of being an entrepreneur along with your culinary abilities, that is why Gourmet Grad School exists. So I'm the CEO and founder. I create all the curriculum for Gourmet Grad School. And let's jump right into this. The first habit that I want to talk about when it comes to high-end culinary brands is that of specialization. So what I've noticed from successful high-end culinary brands is they are not generalists. You want to think about, the difference between, there's a doctor that's a general practitioner and then there's a doctor that's a brain surgeon. One of those doctors makes significantly more than the other one, and it's because they are a specialist. One of the things that I really get into with my clients is that when you are a chef, when you are a cook, a culinary entrepreneur, we know that you have a vast skill set, right? And so the challenge oftentimes is, well, I can cook anything and I can do anything. I can do dinner parties, I can cater, I can do brunches, I can do pop-up events, I can do personal chefing, private chefing, meal prep, food blogging, food content creation. I can write a cookbook. Like, it goes on and on and on. I can teach cooking classes and all of these different things. And so while that is true that you can, okay, the next level of truth doesn't mean that you should, right? And so when it comes to understanding how to market your business, when it comes to understanding who your target market is, when it comes to what you do the best, specialization is the way to go, not generalization. And oftentimes the concern is that, well, I'm going to do all these things because I'll reach the most people. And if I can reach the most people, I can be more successful. And actually the opposite is true. there's a phrase in marketing that says if you're talking to everyone, no one is listening, right? So you want to think about, how do I, as a culinary artist, really hone in on what I specialize in, okay? What I call it in my program, the Chef's Table Experience, is I call it your unique culinary point of view. And your unique culinary point of view is basically what you do, who you do it for, why you do it, and how you do it. So again, the specialization is your culinary point of view, is what you do, who you do it for, why you do it, and how you do it. Okay. So that's habit number one, which is specialization. The second habit of successful high-end culinary brands is those who have a strategy. Now, a lot of times people are like, oh yeah, I have a strategy. I'm going to cater weddings and I'm going to post on social media and I'm going to get referrals. And what I want to say to that is, those aren't strategies, those are tactics. Tactics are things that execute a strategy. This is why it's important not to be trying to look at other people's websites or look at other people's socials and trying to figure out what they're doing and trying to like reverse engineer, because while you may be seeing tactics that they are doing, you do not understand the overall strategy, which is the approach, okay, on how they're trying to get to where they're getting to. You don't even necessarily know their goals, right? And so without a strategy, you're literally just, trying different tactics as if you're throwing spaghetti up against the wall. And so a lot of times people are like, oh, they'll say to me, Evelyn, I hate social media, or, I don't enjoy doing this. And while that a part of that may be true, what I typically find is not that they hate social media, is that they hate feeling like I've just got to come up with all this stuff and do so much, not knowing if it's going to give me the kind of result that I want to get. Posting in social media is not a strategy, that's a tactic. Getting referrals in your business is not a strategy, it's a tactic that's meant to execute a strategy. You have to have a strategy first, and then once you have a strategy and you know what your goals are, then you can properly pick the correct tactics to execute that strategy. I think about it like this. A lot of times, particularly when it comes to culinary entrepreneurs that don't want to have a restaurant, right, which is what we talk about here, it's like there's not a lot of places for us to go and get business advice. So we end up following, these general business coaches and gurus who have great advice, but know nothing about the food industry. And so it's not 100% transferable. And so what happens is, when you don't have a strategy in your business, you will go and purchase their course or their coaching program, and you'll invest here, invest there. And it's like, well, it doesn't really fit. And you're buying their Instagram marketing course, and you don't even know if Instagram is going to be one of the tactics that you're going to use to carry out your strategy. Okay. And so one of the things I love about what I do with my clients inside of the Chef's Table Experience is that I give them a map of like where they're going, and we create their strategies for all the different parts of their business so that they can see where the gaps are. And then they can go, if they so need to get a subject matter expert on a particular area if it's something that they aren't well versed in, right? But without a strategy, you're just shooting in the dark. You're just throwing spaghetti up against the wall, seeing if it sticks. And we all know that is not the most effective way of seeing if pasta is done, right? So the second habit of successful high-end culinary brands is to have a strategy. The third habit of successful high-end culinary brands is to obtain a very specific skill set. Now, what comes to mind is that audio. I don't know what show or movie it's from. Was like, I have a very unique set of skills, right? And when it comes to high-end culinary brands, the skills that they have mastered are sales, are marketing, which are not the same. Okay. They've mastered the skills of being an entrepreneur. Oftentimes as chefs, as cooks, as culinary entrepreneurs, we are under this false belief that if I can just make good food, my good food should make me successful in business. And unfortunately, and I know this is very challenging for some to wrap their mind around, unfortunately, that is not the case. We all know you know what I'm about to say, that McDonald's doesn't have the best hamburgers. But what McDonald's does know is the business of fast food restaurants. Dare I say that Chick-fil-A doesn't have the best fried chicken in the fast food world. Some would argue that there are others who have better chicken. But what Chick-fil-A has mastered is the business side of a fast food restaurant, right? They know their customers, they know their clients, they know what draws them to them. So they understand client experience and customer service and all these things, right? So one of the things I really want to encourage you is to think about, where have you spent time learning the skills of entrepreneurship? The skills of entrepreneurship, not the skills of cooking, not the skills of catering, not the skill of food blogging, not the skill of teaching cooking classes, not the skill of making wedding cakes, not the skill of meal prep, right? Because that is one set of skills and you need to be fantastic at that for sure. And also you need to have put the same amount, if not more effort in, do I have sales skills? Do I know how to sell my amazing product? Do I have marketing skills? Have I studied customer service? Have I studied client experience? Which are not the same, just like sales and marketing aren't the same. They have very, very different functions, right? And so what I've noticed about high-end culinary brands that are very, very successful is their skills in this area are razor sharp. They are razor sharp. Okay, so without those skills, you could have the best food in the world and then be confused or even frustrated when you see people who is like, their food doesn't even look that great, or like it's not even that good, or they're not doing that great of a job, and it feels like they're just blowing up and being so successful or getting all these opportunities. And the reality is there is a chance that they may have mastered certain skills, a particular set of skills, certain skills that has allowed them to be even more successful. One of the things that I go into detail about in the High-End Culinary Brand Intensive is like all the skills and the different things that you need and like the components of each one of those, right? Like you really need to know what you need to know. Okay, so I've just given some examples. The fourth habit of successful high-end culinary brands is to have the proper structures in place. Let me tell you, I know we are creative. We like to just come up with stuff. We like to do all the different things. We are artists of the food medium, if you will. However, structure is so important. You need something to house all that creativity. And so your business, even your creativity, needs structure. I want you to think of it like this. Your skills, your creativity as a chef, I want you to think about it like water. Okay. I want you to think about water. Water is amazing. Water, we need water to survive. It's refreshing. It feels good when you take a nice deep soak. It's wonderful to listen to when you go to the ocean and go to the beach, go for a swim. When you've had a very intense workout, ice cold water is like the most refreshing thing. Like water is amazing. We love it when it rains to make the grass green and, clear out the air, and it brings a beautiful rainbow. Water is amazing. So your culinary creativity is amazing. However, when water is uncontained, it can do severe damage. Floods, tsunamis, hurricanes, right? It can bust pipes, right? It can flood your basement, right? It can flood if there's no dam, right? If there's no pipes, if there's no sewers, if there's no structure for the water can become extremely destructive. Something that can be life-giving and wonderful and amazing without the presence of structure can be very detrimental. And this is the same, it is true in your business. If you do not have the proper structures in place so that you can have your creativity, you're going to have a very expensive hobby, or you're going to stay plateaued at a level in business and you're not really going to understand why you haven't been able to move past that point. right? So you need to have the proper structures in place. One of the things, in addition to the skill sets that I talk about, is we go into what are the structures that you need to have in place in your culinary business to be a successful high-end culinary brand. Because the truth of the matter is without strategy, without systems, without skill sets, structure, all you have is a full-time side hustle. I want to say that again. I know. It's a little spicy, right? It's tight, but it's right. Without structure, without strategy, without certain skill sets, okay, what you have is a full-time side hustle. And that is not sustainable. It's not something that you can grow. It's not something that's going to easily hit your goals. Now, if your goal is just to have your culinary business as something on the side just for fun, and you just want to make a little something here and there and live out your chef fantasies, perfect, right? Then this video is not for you. However, if you're someone who's like, this is my livelihood, right? And I'm going to retire from this, I'm going to be doing this for a certain amount of time, you definitely need to have the proper structures in place. And I want to say this, structures, processes, a person is not a process, right? So if you're like, oh, this person does this and this person does that, not structure. Okay, so again, think of that water example, and you kind of know if there's some areas in your business where you're like, it just always feels like a burden, it always feels like a headache. Sometimes, things fall through the cracks. A lot of times there is no structure there. Okay, so you want to think about what are the structures that you need in your business to be able to sustain it, to be able to scale it, okay, and to be able to enjoy. A lot of times people aren't enjoying their culinary business anymore because they don't have those structures and because things are so haphazard and they're just kind of like over it, right? Lack of structures builds burnout, right? So if you've been feeling burnt out in certain areas of your business, it's an indication that you might need to take a look at your structures. Habit number 5 of successful high-end culinary brands is something that I'm bringing to you from my engineering days. So if you are new to me, or maybe you just don't know this about my story, before I was a chef, I was a chemical and environmental engineer. I actually worked in food manufacturing. I've worked in car manufacturing, home appliance manufacturing. So manufacturing was the area that I worked in. But one of the things that I spent a lot of time on as an engineer and has served me well in my roles as a chef in my business and serves my clients well is having standard operating procedures. I know, super sexy, right? Standard operating procedures. This is one of the habits of successful high-end culinary brands that's not as, appealing. Okay, it's not as appetizing, right? It's not as enticing, but it is so important. If you've ever worked in a restaurant or a catering company, you know the importance of standardized recipes. Okay, because without standardized recipes, you can't really manage your food cost. Okay, right. And so not only do you need standardized recipes, but you also need standard operating procedures for every area of your business, for every function in your business, for everything that happens in your business, and not just the execution of a dish, right? You need that too. But there are several areas where you need standard operating procedures. And without that, again, it's mayhem. It's stressful. Everything is living inside your brain. Everything falls on you. And when you don't have standard operating procedures, this is when you find yourself in a position where you feel like you can't take off because nobody can do it the way you do it. Right? This is when you feel like, okay, if I do go on vacation or God forbid something happens to me and I get sick or something like that, like I'm going to lose revenue and income because, the business can't go on without me. However, if you had standard operating procedures in place, you could hand those off to people. And if you have done them well, they can run with it as if you were there. But what's happening sometimes instead is that all of the things that you do because you've been doing them so long and you know that you can do them quickly and you don't even have to think about it, they come first nature to you. They're all living inside your brain. And sometimes you're moving so fast, you're like, I just don't have the time to sit down and try to document all the standard operating procedures that need to be documented. However, okay, it's a vicious cycle, right? It's a vicious loop. It's like, you need to do it, but then you don't do it, but then you need to do it, but then you don't do it. And you're wondering why, again, maybe you're experiencing burnout, maybe why you aren't reaching certain goals. Okay, maybe why you feel exhausted sometimes, right? Some things feel overwhelming, or maybe why you feel like you can't take off and really relax, because sometimes you take off and yes, maybe you've got some team and they can handle it, and you still feel a little uneasy, and it's because you have no SOPs and no structure to lean on, okay, to support you in that time off and that relaxation. Because if you had confidence in your structure, if you had confidence in your SOPs, you would be able to relax and take a deep breath. So habit number 5 of successful high-end culinary brands is standard operating procedures. Habit number 6 of successful high-end culinary brands is having a step-by-step process. Now, let me explain what I mean. So think about this. If you have a recipe, recipes have essentially 3 parts, okay? You have your ingredient list, okay? You have your quantities, and then you have your instructions. Now, how many of you know when it comes to baking, there are so many ways that you can make a cake? There is the creaming method. There is the chiffon method. There is the muffin method. There's so many different ways that you can put together essentially the same combination of ingredients: flour, sugar, eggs, some kind of fat, some kind of liquid, right? Milk, flour, sugar, butter, eggs, right? And you know that depending on the quantity of those items and the order in which you put those items together and the method in which you put those items together is going to yield something very, very different. Okay, so if I do the creaming method, I know that I'm going to get a certain type of texture and cake and rise and all of that. But I know if I do the chiffon method, it's going to be very, very different, right? Versus if I do like the muffin method or the biscuit method, it's all going to be very, very different. So here's the same thing that's true in business. Oftentimes what I find, when, people are thinking about, coming to learn at gourmet grad school, and I have conversations with them, they've been looking at other people and they've been trying to figure out what they're doing. And they're like, well, they're doing this and this and this and this and this, right? And so what they've got is an ingredient list. Okay. And then maybe sometimes, they've really tried to get in there and they've spent hours and hours on Google and on YouTube and following these general business, advisors and experts and gurus on social media. And they've tried to pull some things there. So they're like, oh, okay, this person says I need to post on Instagram 3 times a day. And this person says I need to go to networking events. But this person says I need to run Facebook ads, but this person says that I need to go to do vending at farmers markets and right. And so you've got this ingredient list and essentially maybe you've got something more specific and you feel like you got some quantities. Here's the challenge, right? Just like I was saying you could have the same list of ingredients and the same measurements, but without that part of the recipe that gives you the instruction, you know that you're not going to get what the author intended for you to get. And this is the biggest thing. I find that as chefs, we are really resourceful. We can, make something out of nothing when in the kitchen, and we can do a lot of different things. However, when it comes to business, you could have pulled a lot of different information from a lot of different things, and you can have a lot of information, if you will, in your, mental pantry. However, if you do not have that instruction, that step-by-step process, okay, that step-by-step path of how and what to do when, right, then you may not necessarily get the goals that you want. So many times, this is the biggest one, because when I say goals, I'm not always talking about money. I have encountered chefs who have huge social media followings, and I can tell that they're not necessarily generating revenue. And then I've ran into chefs who have smaller social media followings. They're having great revenue, but they're exhausted, and the whole business depends on them, right? So they will have built something and it'll work. Here's the thing. If you mix all those ingredients together, you're going to get some kind of cake. Now, whether it's what you wanted, whether it's something that you're going to enjoy is a different story, because if you do not have the step-by-step of, okay, in business, things go like this, right? In this order, and this is the meaning behind it, then a lot of times you will not get your desired outcome. I think about it like this, when it comes to baking versus cooking we call it recipes, and baking we call it formulas. And that's because there's a lot of chemistry going on, right? We know that sugar is not only a sweetener, but it also does other functions in the baking process. There's a reason why some recipes call for baking powder, some call for baking soda, and some call for both, right? So there's reasons there. There's a reason why this recipe needs buttermilk and this recipe needs just regular full fat milk, right? There's a reason why this recipe needs vinegar and, lemon juice and vice versa, because there's chemistry going on there, okay? Here's the thing, right? If you don't know what those ingredients do, if you don't understand what they're doing besides face value, which is, eggs, a binder, butter is for fat, flour is for gluten, and sugar is for sweetening, right? And then, the baking powder or baking soda is for leavening. If you don't know what else those things do, what their intentions are, what their full role is in that recipe, if you try to play around with them and you don't really know what they're doing, you're not going to get your desired outcome. And that's what I see happening in business, right? Particularly when it comes to chefs, is that you see a lot of things, so you're trying a lot of things, but you're not really understanding what that's supposed to do. Like, for example, social media. I'm going to use that one because obviously this video is online, and if I had to guess, you have leveraged some form of social media for your culinary business. And I tell people all the time, I was like, so what is it exactly that you want insert any platform here to do for your business? Like, just answer that question. If you're someone that's posting on Instagram, I was like, okay, what is the role of Instagram in your business? Where does it fit in your strategy, if you have a strategy, right? Because Instagram can do a lot of different things. YouTube can do a lot of different things, right? TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, right, can do a lot of different things. So you have to know, like, again, this goes back to my strategy. And then also I need to know, okay, this is the step-by-step of how things need to go. And then once I understand what the ingredients do, the step-by-step process, then I can experiment with them. But if I don't understand, the sugar provides sweetness, but it also provides structure. And I only think the only structure in the cake is coming from from the flour. And I don't understand that the eggs also provide a form of structure. If I don't know that, and then I try to play around with the combination of that, I'm going to come out with a disaster, right? So it's important that you understand, okay, what the goal is and what the function of all the ingredients are. And you need to know what's the step-by-step process of mixing all of those together in your business for it to be successful. Okay. Habit number 7 of successful high-end culinary brands is support. And when I speak about support, I want you to think about support in 3 ways. Okay. The first one is I want you to think about support in the form of going upward, right? Meaning, do you have support in your business of people or a person, right, who is further than you in your business, who can help guide you to where you want to go? That's one layer of support. The second layer of support is, do you have peers that you can discuss business with as y'all journey through, right? Who are at similar stages in business, right? And here's the thing, this is not just about newbies or beginners, because I run into chefs all the time who are doing extremely well and they feel lonely in business. They're like, there's no one for me to talk to about the challenges that I'm having now that I'm making all of this money, right? Now that I have a team, or now that I have accomplished, X, Y, and Z, right? So do you have support of someone or someones that have been ahead of you in your specific area of business, right? Do you have support laterally with peers in the industry who are on the same journey as you and in similar places? And then I want you to think about support going downward. Do you have support in your business? And the two types of support that I recommend are team and technology, right? Team and technology. I tell my clients all the time, technology is your first team member. So if you are not ready to hire someone yet, then you need to have the technology to support you, because you cannot do it all by yourself. You don't have to do everything, but someone or something needs to be working on your business all the time on your behalf, right? So you need support in your business. One of the things that I love, and it was kind of like a great side effect from the Chef's Table experiences, I had some clients who had graduated from the program and they were like, we miss each other. Right. And so they started, talking about like, well, what are they going to do now that they have graduated from the Chef's Table experience? Because, having people to bounce ideas off of who are at your level, right, like, is so valuable, because sometimes entrepreneurship can be lonely, particularly in what we do, because, we're not necessarily sitting in co-working spaces every day. There's not, outside of the National Restaurant Association, convention and certain other things, those of us that have went the freelance chef route, where do we go to make connections and stay in business? Most people have had to do it on their own, right? And then it's like, well, then I've got to have that laterally, but then I've got to have, it would be super beneficial for someone that I could call and ask questions, or message and be like, hey, listen, I'm encountering this. And they're like, oh yeah, I've been there. I've done that. Try this, try that. Right. And then also not carrying all the workload on your own and having technology and team to support you in your business. These are the things that make successful high-end culinary brands successful, is they have varied support in their business, right? And so back to those clients, not only did they were like, hey, we miss each other, but they were like, they miss being able to go, listen, I know I probably could figure it out on my own, but I'm going to ruminate over it, and I'm going to go 3, 4, 5 weeks, months, or whatever, going back and forth with this thing. And if I could just tap in and ask a question and get clarity or advice or direction, even if I choose to go something else, just to have another set of eyes on when I'm making decisions and making moves. Am I overcharging, undercharging? Should I go this way? Should I go that way? How's my strategy looking, right? Am I still following the step-by-step process, right? So having support in your culinary business is essentially a non-negotiable. If you are out here going at it alone, I encourage you to find a community, get those 3 prongs going, get someone or someone's who are ahead of you in business, right? Get some peers, and then get technology and team if you're at that point. That's one of the reasons why I created Gourmet Grad School. When I left corporate America and I left engineering, I was like, where do I go to have people who were ahead of me in business and give me, experienced business advice, not hypothetical business advice, right? Because they don't know anything about the industry, right? Where do I go where there's other people like me that I can be like, hey, what are you doing? How is this going? Right? And then, needing that team and technology. So if you do not have your business supported, I suggest you move that to the top of your priority list. So the 8th and final business habit of successful high-end culinary brands is systems. Now, remember I said that there are 8 other more personal individual habits that aren't business habits. And like, if you want to know what those are, check out our private podcast. But I want to talk about systems. So we've talked about structure, and we've talked about a step-by-step process, and we've talked about strategy, and we've talked about support, and we've talked about specialization, right? But now I want to talk about systems, okay? Because systems are the key to success in any area of life. I once heard T.D. Jakes say, all blessings require a system. And I remember hearing that and thinking, I never thought about that. But the engineer in me perked up, and I was like, you're right. Anything that you want to run continuously, that you want to continue to be successful in any area of life, requires a system, right? So I want you to think about this. Good habits are the key to all success. Bad habits are the unlocked doors to failure, right? So we've been talking about habits here, right? But here's the thing. If you do not have systems, it is hard to have habits to implement and sustain the system, right? So think about this, right? A good system shortens the road to a goal, okay? It shortens the road to a goal, right? Successful people create systems so that essential tasks always get done. I want to say that again because this is the clincher when it comes to systems in your high-end culinary brand. Successful people create systems so that essential tasks always get done. I want to say these last two quotes because I really want you to anchor this into your brain about the importance of systems. Never build a business, build a system. Matter of fact, build a system of systems, okay? Right? And you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. That's probably my favorite one, right? What I know for sure is if there's any area in your business or life for that matter, where you are not reaching your goal and you cannot figure out why, it's likely there is no system, there is an outdated system, or there is a malfunctioning system, right? So if you say to yourself like, man, I don't know how to get new clients, right? You probably do not have a system for getting clients, okay? If you're like, man, people call me and they want to book my services or whatever. And, by the time they get off the phone, they're like, oh, okay, thanks. And, I'm not closing as many sales. It's probably because you don't have a sales system, right? If you're like, man, I'm so frustrated with marketing and I don't really understand it and it seems overwhelming. It's probably because you do not have a marketing system. I mean, you can take this whole thing and you can move it to the outside of your life. Let's say you're someone and you're trying to improve your physical health, right? And you're like, okay, what am I want to release some weight. And it's like, do you have a weight loss system in place? If you don't go to bed on time, do you have a system to ensuring that you go to bed on time? If you're somebody that's always late, it's because you do not have a system in place to make sure that you are on time, right? If you're like, man, my relationships aren't going the way I want them to, it's probably because you do not have a system in place to maintain and enhance your relationships. You're just doing it by the seat of your pants. Any area of life where you want to have success and you want to sustain that success, you're going to need a system. And I will tell you, systems eliminate and minimize stress. Systems are a form of self-care. Systems allow you to scale, right? Systems are in service to your goals. When you do not have systems in place, you are not going to reach and or maintain your desired outcomes, right? Systems help alleviate burnout. Systems help minimize confusion, right? Systems are the secret to success, right? This is why I wanted to put this one last. So here's the thing. I'm so passionate about this. I could just teach on systems all day, but there's so many systems that you need in your business. Probably about a year ago, I had someone DM me on Instagram and they were saying, hey, because I think I vaguely mentioned systems at the time, and they were like, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out all the systems I need in place. They were like, what do I need to put in my system? And I was like, which system? And it made me really start mapping out like, well, you need a system for this, for that, for that. Like there are so many different moving parts and systems that need to happen in a business. And it's something that is why I created the High-End Culinary Brand Intensive, because you need to know what these systems are. You need to know what systems you have in place that need to be updated. You need to know, I don't even have a system for that. You need to see if your system is malfunctioning, right? Everything in our world operates off of systems. The device you're watching this on, there's an operating system, right? We live in an ecosystem. The Earth is part of the solar system. Your body is a composite of systems. You've got your immune system, your respiratory system, your reproductive system, your digestive system, your skeletal system, right? You've got all of these different systems in your body, right? There is the school system, okay? And even, listen, it's not great, but then there's even like the prison system. Everything in our community, everything in our world operates off of systems. Your business is not an exception. Your business is not an exception. And if you're like, ooh, I don't have any documented systems, right? Because a system that's inside your brain is not a system, right? Systems are documented. That's how we know that they're systems, right? And there's things that make these systems run, because then when you're not meeting a goal, you can look at the system and go, oh, okay, this failed right here, or this part of the system wasn't working, or this part of the system hasn't been done yet. And that's why it's not giving me the desired outcome that I want, right? But your phone has a system, your computer has a system, your body has a system, your house has an air conditioning and heating and cooling system, a plumbing system, an electrical system, right? Systems are the ultimate key to success. It is the secret ingredient. And if you want to know what are all the systems you need for a successful high-end culinary brand, then I invite you to join the High-End Culinary Brand Intensive, where I break down all the systems you need. That way you can audit yourself and know where your gaps are so that you can go and then create a system, right? Now, we go over what the systems are, and you can self audit in the High-End Culinary Brand Intensive. However, if you're like, I already know I don't have any systems, and I need to know not only what the systems are, but I need to know what goes into each system, then you are ready to apply for the Chef's Table experience, right? So you've got three options here, right? You've got three options here. You can say, listen, this video was great. Thanks. I'm going to go and keep doing what I've been doing. And that is 100% your choice, right? But here's the thing. If you've watched all the way through this, like you're probably like, okay, I know I need to cultivate these habits, right? And so if you're just like, you know what, I just want to dip my toe in, and I just kind of want to get an assessment, and you want to just learn what the things are, okay, and you want to complete the business audit, then the High-End Culinary Brand Intensive is the perfect thing for you. However, if you already know, and you're like, I don't need to do any more Google searching. I don't need to spend 5 more hours on YouTube. I don't want to listen to any more business coaches who know nothing about food, and they're just guessing to see if their strategies work for me, right? If you're like, I don't need to opt into nobody else's free anything because it never really gives me what I need, and you know that you're ready to do the work, right? Like you're like, yeah, I'm not hitting my goals because I do not have these systems in place, or I don't have a strategy, or I don't have a step-by-step process, or I don't have structure, or entrepreneurship has been super lonely. Then I invite you to join the Chef's Table experience. So those are your three options. You could be like, hey, Evelyn, thanks. This was great. I'm going to go do my thing, and I'm still going to try to piecemeal it together and DIY it and try to learn from other, culinary entrepreneurs, even though I really don't know what their strategy is and I really don't have the full recipe. Listen, and that's no shade. Here's the thing. You may eventually be successful in a way that, feels good to you. Now, how long it may take you to get there, I don't know. How much money and time and frustration and lost opportunities may come with that, I don't know. I have lived that life. I will never do that again. I'm the person who's like, if you can show me the way, show me the way. This is why we all love GPS. How many people are like, you know what? I don't want the GPS to tell me how to get there. I just want to get in the car and drive. And then, if I lose, 3 or 4 hours and a couple of detours and hit some traffic that I could have avoided, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Said no one ever, right? So your other two options, like I said, if you're just dipping your toe into the pool and you're like, you know what, I don't even know what I don't know, okay, then the High-End Culinary Brand Intensive is for you. And all the details about that are in the description box below. However, if you're like, yeah, I already know that I don't know, and I don't need the baby step, I need to just get right into what's going to teach me how to build the systems, then I invite you to apply for the Chef's Table experience, and all the details for that are beneath this video as well. So I hope that you enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments below, right? Let me know, or you can DM me at Gourmet Grad School on Instagram. Let me know which one of these 8 habits, or which ones of these 8 habits really appeal to you the most, or you're like, oh, I really don't have that habit, or I really need that habit, right? Or let me know if you have any questions about the High-End Culinary Brand Intensive or the Chef's Table experience. And I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Peace.